Hello, good evening. It's July 24th, 2018. This is Grant Cameron, and you are listening to the Cameron Files. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Fasten your seatbelts for takeoff. We're about to go very, very fast. Do a little bit of update before we get to my guest this evening. A book has just been released. I'm very excited about it. It's called Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. It's put out by the Free Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Experiences. I'm very excited because I believe firmly that consciousness is the ground of being. It is where we got to go with this thing. And on a related situation, I just heard an interview today with Jeremy Corbell about the Skinwalker Ranch, that the whole ATIP program may have gone back to the Skinwalker Ranch. And the Skinwalker Ranch has a lot that has to do, almost to steal a line from Steve Bassett, it's not about the lights in the skies, it's about the consciousness on the ground. The phenomena that they were dealing with at the Skinwalker Ranch will go to this consciousness element. And to sort of enforce that, most people who know about Bob Bigelow know that he did a lot of UFO stuff. Most people forget the fact that Bob Bigelow put up $3.7 million for a chair on consciousness studies at the University of Las Vegas, Nevada. So consciousness is where we're going. Another update item, I just read just before the show started that the Space Force that was requested by Donald Trump is not in the 2019 budget. Apparently Congress has just sort of ignored him. And so any possible war with aliens is going to have to be held off for another year. I'm about to do an update on a military unit known as 73790. It is the Soviet Union or the Russian equivalent to Area 51. It was indirectly mentioned in a very recent presentation by Hal Puthoff in Las Vegas. I've got the slides ready. I hate doing updates. So when I talk myself into doing it, I will update this. You'll see it on my YouTube channel, which is Whitehouse UFO. And it's got to do with this unit in the Soviet Union where they supposedly dealt with all their craft saucers. And the final item on my update list here today goes to a story where Ron Pandolfi, who I believe may be the guy who briefs the president on UFOs, been running the UFO game for the CIA since 1983. His favorite expression is everybody in the UFO community is either a loon, a crook, or worse. And yesterday I got a phone call about a rumor that supposedly I had started. And this has to do with one of the members of the To the Stars Academy and two other people. And the story that was told to me, they wouldn't tell me who the other two people were, even though supposedly I'm behind this rumor. And it basically said that these people are in some sort of cell or something working for the CIA or the government or something like that, which of course is total nonsense. I will be doing an update later on where I will mention that there are many, what I believe, CIA disclosure operations going on, maybe as many as 7 different operations going on. And but I would say that anybody in them really is not in part of any cell. Anybody who is being used by the CIA really doesn't know what they're doing. The only people that know what's going on is the people who are running the operation. All the rest of us are just puppets and clowns. So tonight I want to welcome my guest, a good friend of mine from many years back, and she has had to deal with a lot of rumors as well. So she knows where I'm coming from when it comes to rumor stuff. And that's my friend Joanna Summerscales. And good evening, Joanne.
Hello, and thanks for having me on your show. How lovely.
Yeah,
the boot is on the other foot.
Yeah, most people may not know that you actually were born in Canada, correct?
Yeah, Toronto, at Mount Sinai Hospital.
Yeah, then you went to England, and you've got the accent, so you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
you and I, let's go through when we first met, because there's a couple interesting stories that people may not know. We met in Ireland, correct?
Yeah, 2009.
And that was in a castle.
Yeah, Boyle, actually, with Betty Myler, who sadly left us. And yes, we were both speaking. And then, do you remember that we went to see what Eamon Ansborough had to show us?
That's
the
what
astronomer.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. So what do you remember about this? It was this little thing, and if it hadn't been for you, I never would have gone, because I really didn't have any interest. It was you came up to me and said, do you want to go? Him and his friend were in the audience the whole time, and do you want to go at his place and look at his stuff? And I figured, well, there's nothing else to do, so what the heck, let's go. So tell the people what we saw there. It was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. There was two things there. So tell us.
Well, he was showing us how he had been tracking UFOs across this particular area, and he'd got it all taped. He got their routes taped. He'd got everything. And this guy, he's an astronomer, and he also works at ESA. I don't know if he still does or it's from time to time. But anyway, so we saw all that, and he described how he had got this kit together for tracking UFOs, these cameras, and I can't remember what else. But then he was talking about this 3D technology. Do you remember that, Grant?
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Do you remember that TV? I think there was two of them there.
Yeah, I do. I don't remember a lot about it, except he was saying this was really cutting edge stuff. Yeah. And of course, back in 2009, which isn't that long ago, I guess we weren't having 3D televisions, and
we still don't have 3D TV.
No, and it's still not coming out anytime soon.
Yeah,
not for everybody.
There was no glasses. I remember there was no glasses like you wear. There's no 3D glasses.
No,
and
that's right.
Screen. It was like a 40 or 45 inch screen. It was a big screen, and I remember someone was going to touch it, and they yelled at us, "Don't touch it! Don't touch it!" Yeah. And I remember he said, or maybe his associate said, this was going to come out the next year in video games. I mean, I can still remember this to this day, this 3D TV in this small little back room in Boyle, Ireland. I could not believe it.
Yeah, I know. And I was really astonished, because he only invited just one or two of us and said, come on, I'll show you what I've been working on, show you how I'm tracking these UFOs. And interesting. I don't know if you've been able to connect with him since. I've tried, but have not been able to.
I was actually going to do an interview, and I sort of messed it up about 6 months ago. I was going to do an interview. He's sort of back on the scene now again.
Oh, great.
And but I remember him talking about sending a signal or something, because he ran the King's Observatory there, right?
Yeah.
And he would tell them to do a signal, to do a figure eight in the sky, and the objects would do this figure eight. And he was working with some guy from Italy or something, some physicist from Italy.
That rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you remember the technology he was, I guess he was selling it to various countries. This it was partly optical telescope and partly computerized, where he was showing us you could see a microwave tower from 10 miles away, and it looked like it was right in 50 yards away. And then the other one was in the dark. He shows the microwave tower in the dark 2 miles away, and it's like daylight, and the thing's right there. It was just absolutely fascinating. And so I'm glad you remember the same sort of stories I remember there.
Yeah, I do. You remember a little bit more detail. I'd forgotten about the towers there, but yeah, now you've said it, I recall, and how it was, this was quite late in the evening, wasn't it? After we'd yeah. So I remember you were having a horrible time with jet lag.
I had missed the flight there. I left my passport on the plane in England, in London. Oh, and I had to go back, and there was, in those days, there was really no cell phone, so you couldn't really call ahead that you'd missed your flight and you were going to be late. But fascinating. So that's the way we started back in Ireland, and
indeed,
we've interacted quite a bit. You've done radio shows
Yeah, I had my own show for about 18 months called The Amash Files from 2014 through 15. And I was running the Amash Project, which I founded in 2011, but I had to close it, abort it, literally, because back in 2015, just coming into 16, the guy who'd been helping me with the website and I was reconfiguring it because I'd had I'd gone solo from having worked with a colleague, and I was having all kinds of problems, from all the rumors you were talking about to a hell of a lot of interference with anything that I did. And then this last big thing was that my web guy said, "Joanne, I can't believe what's happening. Your entire website has been piggybacked, and it's like a tsunami of porn is pouring through it." And he showed me his page real time, which were links only to these. I mean, good God. And I just said, save what you can and pull it. Save it if you can, any of the material. And he managed to save 99% of it and just shut it down, because he said, "I didn't think you had a subscription channel." I said, "I don't." He said, "Well, there's loads of subscribers and it's obviously all for this pornography stuff." I don't know how that happens, but, something has been trying to shut me down for a long time, on and off. Not just the physical material stuff like the Amash, hence the ET newsroom name, which I came up in a really big hurry just to have a presence, just so it was a placeholder for me whilst I was relocating geographically and all the rest of it. My father had not long died, all of that stuff going on. So, it was a bit of a turbulent time, and then dealing with all the rest of that, as well as all the psychic stuff that was trying to impinge itself, which did impinge itself on me for a short time, and, to try and change my mind about doing this work.
Tell me about that. I didn't hear about that.
I'm sorry?
Tell me a bit about that. I don't
recall.
Oh
my God. It started right from 2012. So I started the Amash Project 2011, about January. Yeah. And I will say that from the get-go, I was very proactive, and we got a lot of these interviews down and out very quickly. And that brought a lot of media attention just locally. And that began to, I don't know what happened, but the ex-colleague began to behave rather strangely, erratically, and very oddly. Anyway, then coming into 2012, had my first conference in 2012, but earlier in the year had two massive, very strange, phenomenal attacks, which were, one was being entirely electrocuted in my bed, having been woken up with a paralysis scenario manifesting. That normally I've had sleep paralysis for years, on and off. Nothing's ever manifested from those, because I fight it like mad. I can't just let it go. But this time it was as if it was being kind of visited upon me in a different way. And then this it was as if my crown chakra had been plugged into the mains. There was an intense energy going through my body, and that was fairly scary, because I could feel it affecting my heart really strongly. And so I did a lot of work on clearing that. And then the second one, within about 2 months, was where it was a lucid dream, and make of this what you will. I have no military connections, nor have my family, but in this lucid dream, I was suddenly in a massive hangar, and there was nothing that I could see except it was lit by huge bright lights. I mean, extraordinarily bright. And I had my hair scraped back in a ponytail. I was with, I guess, a colleague. Her hair was scraped back. She was blonde, taller and more slender than I was, and she was accompanying me to this, looked like a picnic table, so with a bench at either side, and there seemed to be some unit to my right, which was in the dark. I expect that was a vending machine, because I found myself with a paper cup of coffee. I don't remember anything written on the cup. I was watching myself take a sip. I took a sip, and as I took a sip, I began to lose consciousness almost immediately, and I looked across at my colleague in horror. And I just got the words out, the coffee, and she cold as ice, said I didn't touch the coffee. And the next thing I know, I'm being carried by 4 people, 2 at my feet, 2 at my shoulders, and they are both, the 2 at my shoulders are both got their hands above my eyes, shielding, because I'm beginning to wake up, shielding my eyes from this incredible light. And I do not remember anything more. But then one of the most extraordinary encounters, this is all fairly intense. And I'm a regression therapist, and I've been working with energy healing for many years, long before the UFO thing came into my life. So I've got some tools that I use to work with protection or rebalancing or recalibrating the energy field around me, which, thank goodness for that, it's been my savior. But this particular event was very extraordinary. I was over at my ex-colleagues, and I was sleeping down on the settee in the lounge, not a very big room. At the end of the settee where I was sleeping, where there was a doorway through to the kitchen and through to a little room where we did the editing. And it was about 2 a.m. and I just put a book down over onto my right side. I was facing into the room. It wasn't black dark, but it was dark enough, and there was a little red dot of a light in the corner which showed that the camera was on, checking the cars outside, all that. So then that red light became like the size of a tiddlywink, which is about a centimeter or more in diameter. And I noticed that instantly. I thought, well, how strange, because it really was just a very small point of red light before. And then all of a sudden the center of the room it's almost like it became pitch black. And out of the pitch blackness stepped a man. I know this sounds absolutely crazy. I wasn't sleeping and I hadn't gone into any kind of lucid dreaming. I was wide awake and going, what the heck is happening? This man, who was shrouded in black, so everything was in black. There was no indication. So I could see that there was a nose and that there were ears, but I couldn't see any detail at all. So it was if he was shrink wrapped in black. It was amazing. And he had those high shoulders that people look like they've got a kind of coat hanger stuck down them. And he was very slender, extraordinarily slender. He was about 5'4", probably maybe 5'6" at the very most. I'm 5'3", and he wasn't that much taller than me by my guessing. And he, at this point, the moment he stepped out of this, let's call it a portal, an entrance, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what it was, he was no more than 8 feet away from me. It's a small room, as I said, and he walked straight over to me, leant over me, and when he did, he was not less than 2 feet from me. Uh-huh. And I had kept my eyes focused rigidly on the center of the room. I daren't engage him. I just felt quite threatened, as you might imagine. But this felt like it was a military operation. It didn't feel like it was ET. And when he engaged with my energy field, just by looking over me at close proximity, there was another experience of an electric shock that went through my body. And as he stood up and realizing that I wasn't going to do anything, there was a snap back, as if like a piece of elastic had snapped back. And he stood up and just walked toward the end of the settee and straight through to the kitchen area, and then was gone. And that was that. And the next day, when I asked my ex-colleague if they had seen anything, or his lodger, nobody had seen or felt anything. And as I was on my way upstairs to ask the lodger if they had had any experiences, literally within the door jamb, it felt like as I was having a last piece of conversation with my ex-colleague about this, I stood under the door jamb, and it felt like I was under a shower of gold light. It's I don't know how to explain it. It sounds a bit esoteric, but I just felt the most loving, gorgeous sense of protection and love around me, just as I stood in that exact spot. And I took it that it's okay, this has happened, but you're okay. It's all right. You can carry on. I don't know, but I've had several. And since I relocated down to the southeast, which is the Hastings area for UK folks, I've had several really bizarre happenings, no one like the other. I found where I had this guy appear in my bedroom, and this guy was like some guy from the 70s. And he just did an open palmed wave to me. I've called him Clive. He just looks like a Clive to me. I could see how he was dressed. Yeah. He had a little tank top on like they used to wear back then. And he gave me a little smile. I mean, I'd recognize this guy in the street if I saw him. And he was in my bedroom, which is quite a big room. And he was about 12 foot from me, easily distance. And then the next thing I know, he fades out. And again, I'm not lucid dreaming. I'm actually wide awake because I'm a bit of a late to bed baby. Yeah. And the next thing I see is an image very close to my bed on the right side, and I see a very large pincer kind of hand projecting down. And when we kind of put our wrists over, it's more or less a 90-degree angle. But this hand was flat to the arm of what I think is a mantis. I've never seen one otherwise. And I had it's interesting. There was no, again, my researcher head went on. I thought, what am I seeing? What am I trying to understand from this? I had no telepathy, no emotional communication. More, I was just very surprised. And Clive just giving me the open palmed wave. Okay. Was he the mantis? I don't know. Was he a screen memory? Was he a screen image? I don't know what that was. So, and then I've had some more serious events. I won't go into them all because there's been several which have impacted my health, but I kind of got over those too. And, I think something's tried to give me a heart attack once, but I got over that too. It's just like, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I tell you. And, nobody really knows about this side because I haven't, written the book that all of this stuff's gone on in.
Are you planning a book on this?
I haven't been, but you know what? I might. I tell all.
Well, okay. Give me your assessment. You've been at this a long time. And I know you've had a lot of interactions with a lot of people and a lot of experiences. So, sum up for me. What do you think? And you're dealing with the UK government. So, what do you think the government role is in what's happened to you? And what do you think about the intelligence? What do you think the intelligence is all about? Behind the
this is really interesting because I'm just going to before I kind of get to answer that, I just want to say what I was told by one of the I'm going to say one of the biolocation team that I'm working with, and I'll explain about who and what they are, to do with dowsing and ET, finding evidence of ET in ancient archaeology. But they told me, kind of with a smile on their face, and I said, "Really? Do you believe this?" And what they told me was that somebody who's passed on now, only just recently, who I tried to contact and wouldn't speak to me, just put the phone down on me, had worked with the government in areas that you wouldn't you can't mention because you've signed the Official Secrets Act or something. And he was taken, although he was retired, he was taken by car to the Home Office in some back office in London and shown one or two files on a desk. And these files related to 3 of the biolocation team, so this is said, and one was about me. I said, "Really? Are you kidding me? Is this really real?" So all I can tell you is that I do know, because I think, like America, like everywhere else that's developed, there is this sort of planetary-wide awareness of the ET issue. We've only got to go back to Wilbert Smith and those kind of people, Tesla. Yeah. We know they know, and Reich, Wilhelm Reich, for goodness sake. And there clearly is a covert something going on. I mean, look at that little guy who popped out of that portal or whatever it was. I mean, that was something. And I actually had an SAS, an ex-special service force guy, contact me to tell me, after I told about that experience on tape, that he knew what that was. That was a special arm of the services. They're called glimmer men because you only ever catch a glimpse of them. I actually don't know if that's true or not, but he described how they would go into people's houses and they would use this cloaking device which made them invisible to the person. And they would go in and, if they weren't casing the joint for something or the computer or whatever, it was something else that they'd been tasked to do by the forces. So, there is definitely something going on. I don't know what that all is, but there for sure is. I know my phone's been tapped, and it probably still is. People have told me time and again, Joanne, I'm ringing you back, or please tell them to get off the line. And every now and again, I'll just say, listen, GCHQ, I hope you're listening because you might learn something. So. But when I had a conference in 2014, I had a lot of people staying with me. And one was a young lady who's written a thesis, she's an anthropology major, and she wanted to write a thesis instead of about the people in Papua New Guinea, the new tribe that's been discovered or whatever. She thought the abductee scenario would be a very interesting study. And so I my door to her and my connections there, and hopefully we're getting that thesis translated in the not too distant future. So she came up in some excitement and said, Joanne, there's a man outside and he's watching the house. And indeed, there was somebody outside, and he did appear to be watching the house. So one or two of the team went out, got numbers and all the rest of that, and it seemed to go away. We didn't hear it anymore, but it's kind of interesting. It goes in waves of interest. And at the moment, I haven't been that public because I finished writing a book a couple of years ago, and that's now completed. So now I'm starting this next phase of bringing in information through different doorways, like the album that we're going to be talking about a bit later, that kind of thing. So what the security services or the special services, clearly they know. It's obvious they know, and nobody could tell me different. Nobody could make me think any different. And I think there's the same old sort of Oche thing and tight-lipped thing at the moment. It's really no different to the States, to be honest. And I don't see... I've had a recent reconnection with a lady who said, I think I'm, ready to speak to you again. I said, oh, okay. She said, well, the reason I went away was because I was threatened. I was told I shouldn't speak to you, and they would hurt me and they could hurt you. I haven't had that too often. I have had it a few times where people have contacted me and they've been extremely nervous, generally in the UK, but also abroad. I've had a lot of contacts from America as well as Canada and beyond. Oh. But and they have said, got back to me and said, I told you I would be punished for speaking to you. And, I've had a horrible time. Things have been really difficult, and I don't think I can speak to you again. And that has happened, not a lot, but a few times. So, and I think the most, the saddest case is where parents of children who are taken. I've had one or two of those contact me in the earlier days, and they were terrified. They were wanting to tell somebody, so they told me, with me promising never to repeat their story, which I have never done. But what they were saying was that we are frightened we'll have our children taken off us, and my other half is terrified because if we go, any more open or public with this, then, it could bring in severe consequences. Well, we know that people have lost their jobs, their homes, their circle of friends, their family, their wives, their husbands. I don't know about you, but I know for a fact that has happened with people I've talked to, and it's maybe not so common, but it definitely has happened. So yes, it has an enormous impact, this field, every which way on people, and you're going to know it has a big impact on, on the governments of the world, no doubt about that. And I'm going to be very interested to hear what you come up with in your new research project with the Russian areas. Yeah, that's going to be fascinating.
So just before we get to the music thing, which I think is extremely important, you did a book on 2 years ago or 3 years? No, how many years ago?
No, it's just a couple of years ago. Yeah. Actually, it's called 44, and it's based on an ex-soldier's true story of lifelong encounters involving alien abduction, men in black, a serial killer, and persecution by the Freemasons. This is one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard that one person in one lifetime can have, simply because the reason it's got 44 in the title is that this gentleman, who was born in 1950, so he's only 68 now, was 44. So, he hasn't been alive. He's only been alive a short amount of time compared to the time that he was unconscious of what had happened to him. And at 44, he had an incredible, let's call it a download. The way he described it, it was very much like what you'd hear an NDE, a near-death experience relate to. Very similar. Saw his whole life play out before him. Yeah. And that included all the events that he knew of, but all those that he didn't, and was completely blocked against. He saw his ET UFO encounters, abductions, and everything in one fell swoop, which from the age of at least two to three, which for a man who was absolutely against the idea, to the point where his physically disabled brother, not at all mentally, whom he once shared a room with when he was a child also, had seen him being taken. And then when they were older, he tried to tell his brother, my guy, Bill Brooks, about it. But all Bill could think is that the disability, which was physical, as I say, had somehow reached his brain. I mean, he just couldn't countenance it. And wow, it's hard. There's not very many stories I've heard where, as a soldier at 18 years old, he was sent to join a nuclear regiment in Sennelager, Germany. And guess what? The base was shared with personnel from Area 51 who worked underground. How about that?
Wow.
And we have corroborating evidence or a story of this in the form of a wonderful man called John Sutton, whom Bill reconnected with after about 40 years, because there was a huge paranormal event that took place, which John and Bill were both witness to virtually simultaneously. And John was able to tell that story, corroborate it. Bill was in the army at the time. He said he was, and I've done my research. He was. We've got the army book and all the discharge information. All that's in the book as well for anybody to see. But when he joined the army, he couldn't read or write. He had no education. He was a very bright individual, but just life. He came from a very impoverished area, and in the West Midlands in the UK, and he simply didn't know that. And then when he failed his entrance examination, the army said to him, "Oh, don't worry, you'll soon pick it up," and just passed him in. Now, why was that? Was that because they already knew something about him? I suspect it was because within 1 week of being in the army, he had 2 major abductions, and one was at gunpoint.
Wow.
Now, and by a human, perceived to be a human at gunpoint, telling him to walk into the light. And it took me 4 years to work with Bill to do this book, because it was quite a traumatic thing for him to do, because he'd spent so we connected in about 2012 after he heard me talking, probably with this ex-SAS guy, Stuart Neal, about his experiences. He was a 700-year generation army guy. and his whole family had had UFO experiences. But anyway, back to Bill. So he knew about that, and Bill had heard me speaking with him. And he had up until from 1994, when he'd had this download, to 2012, without anybody not really taking any notice of him, and him having nowhere to go with it. And he had nearly died already again. He actually did die in 2014 and was resuscitated. I mean, this guy's like Mr. Bounceback. He's incredible. Wow. Clearly he has something to do still. But he has had the most bizarre experiences, and he underwent an MK Ultra kind of experience also in the army, when he suddenly found himself back in England, where we believe it's Porton Down in 68. Porton Down were testing on soldiers without their consent. This is a well-known thing, and now Porton Down have also had to pay damages to certain soldiers over time. And so Bill was subjected to some horrendous mind control stuff. I think it was a British and American operation. And the upshot of that brainwashing was that I think they were trying to make an assassin out of him, because when he came out, and still only 18, bless him, he couldn't look anybody in the eyes without the urge to kill them. Wow. And he said it's been a lifelong problem, because he's got a will of iron, and thank goodness for that. But even when I met him, I've been to all the major sites that he's had events at in the UK. And even with me, sometimes I'll have seen him looking slightly above or to the right of me or to the left of me. And I, flag that up. And he says, I just can't do it still completely. And he said, I know people think it's a sign of deception. He said, it's not. He said, it's a sign that I'm not going to kill you.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, not that he would now. He's got quite disabled, bless him. But he's been through some really hellish times, because imagine what that does to a mindset like Bill's, who is completely locked out to any concepts that embrace anything to do with ET, other intelligences. He was like blacks, white, you die, you're dust, that's it.
Yeah.
And so, it sent him on a bender for about 2-3 years. And he said, I'm still recovering, to be honest.
Amazing.
Very interesting.
Talking about this guy, yeah. So before we run out of time, let's get to your new project here, and then I'll bring you back, because you got as many stories as I have. I'll bring you back for another show on your upcoming book. But let's go to music. I went down this road. I don't know how you got down this road, but we both seem to have gone down the road of music. So tell me how this starts. I guess it starts with your musical that you wrote, and then tell me how you got into experiencers who are musicians, which is exactly the same thing I did.
Yeah, well, back in about 98, I finished off, I was inspired to write a musical, and I took a year or two to write it, and I wrote the book of it. So I wrote the lyrics to the songs, and I wrote the story, and I had a lovely music teacher help me get some demo music together. So I got 12 tracks, which makes up a complete album. I took a couple of years out to try and get this musical out there. It's called Fifth Dimension, and it's basically, in a nutshell, about naughty reptilian tries to take over Earth, and good old humans, in the form of a woman particularly, but the Galactic Council save the planet, of course. Exactly. But anyway, there's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of comedic stuff in it as well. So I've always had a passion for music. I'm rubbish at music. I can't play anything, and I definitely can't sing. In fact, when I was doing my theatre stuff, people would ask me not to sing. but I quite love it. I quite love it. So Anyway, so I just funneled my interests in a way that I could, which is writing and bringing things together, the organizational side of it. So I did that. Anyway, it didn't really go anywhere, and it's been on the back shelf. So that's where it may well stay. I don't know. But again, about 2-3 years ago, I was just thinking of the incredible talents that I hear experiences telling me within their life stories. And a lot of it is very creative, and I'm very creative. I come from the theatre world, from TV, a little bit of that, and writing a bit. So I wanted to somehow bring that in. And where things are at the moment, we know that there are indeed musicians who are experiencers, who are doing their thing and doing a brilliant thing, but they're not putting it out there necessarily as hey, this is a UFO track. This is, even though it may be in the lyrics, they're not flagging that up as this is, hey, a big experience. And because I had been around Bill, who's a professional musician, and I'd spoken to so many, and it's like Devara Thunderbeat, who I interviewed in America in 2013. She's another one working with other beings and bringing in light and healing through her work. And I thought, wow, if I could bring a whole lot of experienced musicians to one album, what would that vibration be? I mean, it doesn't matter that it's an eclectic mix, hence Eclectia is the title of the album. So we've got some electric rock, we've got some reggae, we've got a bit of classical, we've got some gorgeous material. And I think we may have, dare I say it, a little hit on our hands as well with at least one of them. One of the tracks.
Let's play a number one. For Bill, can you play a number one that's Devara you were just talking about?
Hello, this is Deborah Thunderbeat. Since the age of 4, the beings from Sirius have contacted me throughout my whole life. They work with color, light, and sound frequencies for healing and to activate you into higher dimensions. As a musician, this is the work that I do on all my CDs. My CDs are actual healing tools. I also use sound frequencies for my rainbow body activation sessions. You may sample my music and books at etsandangels.com. Blessings, everyone.
Okay, so that was Devera. Now talk about Dougie a little bit, and we're going to play, first let's play number 2, and then tell us a little bit about Dougie.
My name's Doug Degnan. I'm a vocalist, a songwriter. I write some electronic music. My first experience of anything not of this world, let's say, was when I was playing in the garden in 1964, when I was 5. And looking through the pear tree, light coming through the pear tree, remember the blossom, and very, very difficult to put into words, but I was like wrapped in love and light, and all there was and ever will be in that moment was presented to me, and for want of a better word, the universe was explained down to its bits and bytes, nuts and bolts. And at that age it was quite a lot to take on board, but it felt in that moment it was happening, I knew everything, and I think I did. Unfortunately I don't anymore, and it didn't last for very long, that I knew everything feeling, but it certainly did change my life, and part of that message was that I would be living through a time when we would have to make a choice whether to carry on with the illusion, which was another part of it. It showed me a massive illusion that we was involved in. Or humanity had the chance to break free of the illusion and move on. And I think we're in that time.
Okay, Joanne, tell us about Dougie a little bit.
Well, it's great. He asked me if he could volunteer and do some work with me. And when I heard that he was a musician and singer-songwriter, I said, hey, I've got this album idea. Do you fancy helping me get this out into the world? And he said, oh, my God, yeah, that sounds like a dream. Let's work on it. And you know what? He has been amazing. So a big shout out to Dougie Degnan. Wow, what a great guy.
Okay, the third one is Gary Williams. Let's play Gary Williams' story.
Hi, my name is Gary. I saw a UFO in the summer of 2009. It was a little after 10 p.m., and my mate Chris saw it first. It was an object in the sky that came down directly towards us, straight above his house, approximately 10 to 15 feet above the rooftops. It moved the speed of a helicopter, but in complete silence. It was a big white triangle, moving like an arrowhead, the size of a double-decker bus. I thought in my mind if it was real or maybe a projection. And as I thought that, it moved from side to side, as if to indicate to me that it was real. After that night, everything fitted into place. The truth was finally revealed to me. We are not alone, and we are being lied to. There are aliens here, and they've probably been here for a long time. I wrote about this experience in the song The Big White Triangle, and with my band Justice Kane, we cover other conspiracy facts and alternative knowledge.
So, Joanne, tell me about Gary, a little bit about Gary Williams.
Yeah, you know, when I heard his song, I was blown away. I thought, my God, what a great track. And what I've been doing is asking most of the musicians to provide a little soundbite, as you've been hearing, to have as another area of interest. And you're on the album as well, Grant, because I've got you, Chris Bledsoe, one of the biolocation team, Jeff Crockford and Nigel Hughes, talking a little bit about the impact of ET on the world, on their lives, on their music. And Gary's actually, I think he's got a degree in psychology, but his band, Justice Kane, are interested in researching and doing music about all of this conspiracy, so-called theory kind of material. So we've got some really interesting people on board.
Yeah, we have a lot of clips, so we're going to play the last one. We have a whole pile of them, but we're going to play this last one, and then we're going to talk about the album itself. Mike, let's play Mike, number 4.
My earliest experience was back in 1955 at the age of 4, when I told my mother that something of incredible importance was going to happen on this planet that would affect all units of consciousness, whether it be mineral, vegetable, animal or man. I told my mother that this would not happen in her lifetime. She did die some years ago now, but it would happen in mine. All these decades later, I now believe that what I was trying to say is that there is an energy coming into this solar system that would give people the opportunity to ascend to a higher frequency. After this, I started to see who I now call my space brother. His name is Telos, who visited me throughout my life. At one time, when I was walking along a country lane near where I lived some years ago, he appeared beside me. A portal opened up on the other side of the lane, and I was given the opportunity to go through this portal and go back home. I decided to stay as I wanted to continue making people aware of this change of frequency. He said if I stay, I will suffer intense pain until my passing. Since then, I have developed a degenerative neurological condition that leaves me in severe pain 24/7. Telos only comes to visit when it is absolutely necessary to give me a message.
Okay, that was Mike, and we've decided now to add Nigel. So let's do Nigel Hughes, and then we'll go to the album. We'll describe the album.
Okay, so I'm Nigel Hughes. My background, I was a commercial jet pilot, scientist, an educator, lecturer, and I work with the biolocation team, and we specialise in astrodowsing. What this shows me is space is teeming with intelligent life. The Fermi paradox is answered by the simple reason that advanced technology of spacefaring civilizations have a need to hide from the electric universe. As our technology always looks for electric technology out there and not magnetic technology, Earth civilization is blind to their existence and presence. And it might be just as well. When one sees what's out there, as astrodowsing reveals, it can be a humble, grounding experience. Through the work of the team, we have gained insight into the culture, the technology and the types of the many different species that are out there in space. And this research has been going on for over 10 years. Techniques, we've published books, we've published articles on the matter and offer training and insight into our methods, which enables us to have this magnetic view of life in space. The book names are Secrets of the Stones and The Phoenix Points, which deals with the way in which magnetic technology is hidden from science in general and can be used to look upon the world in space.
Interesting stories, Joanne. Now, we've played a couple of your people that are on your album. So describe maybe the cover, what the concept is, what people will get with Eclectic.
Oh, okay. So it's called Eclectia, and the inspiration for the album cover has come from Dan Vallely, who is an experiencer himself. In fact, I just took a photograph, which I sent you actually, Grant, of a new scoop mark, but it's a huge thing that he showed me on his leg, which happened about 4 days ago. And this is a guy who's got an implant on the right side of his brain. And again, I've sent you the brain scan, so you can have a look at that at your leisure. Anyway, he's an incredible creative artist. Not only is he a musician, singer, and I think we may have a number one with him. His song is The Stars Will Lead You. It's amazing, and everybody seems to be falling in love with it. So he came up with this idea of using Sgt. Pepper's album cover as a template for us. So, and you're on it, Grant.
Yes.
You're on it. And it's got the great and the good of some of ufology, those that we could get on. It's got Maria, it's 3 Greys, and an owl and fairy, and even Sasquatch makes a little appearance back there. Because there's also on the album cover a kind of a key, a who's who on the inside. And there's some blurb as well that I've sent you about what the album's doing, providing a platform. And it's also creating a bridge to the general public, because music speaks many languages. and any language, actually. And this is where I am with the consciousness thing as well, Grant. It is about consciousness. And, that's what the musicians will say as well, one way or another. So the back of the album cover is based on the extraterrestrial highway signage. And Dan has, kind of done his creative thing on it. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't be more thrilled. So we are now just getting to the point where we're sorting out all the technical, legally bits, how we actually get an album out there. This is something I'm learning on the hoof. And, Dougie and I and all the people feeding in like Dan are doing this on Fresh Air. So I'm going to get my GoFundMe page back up. So folks, if you want to see this out there in the world, give us a donation.
And what's your email address for people who want to contact you?
It's info@theetnewsroom.com, and the website is theetnewsroom.com. We have got the album page up there. We haven't got a lot of other information at the moment, but it's coming up in the next 2 weeks. So we're at that critical time when we've got the whole album together, we've got the artwork done, everything's going really well, and we're just working our way through, as I said, this last technical bit, and I hope we're out for late summer or at least the beginning of September. Wow. So look out for it, folks.
You have two other people, I think, that are on your album. Merrill Fankhauser, is he on your album?
Oh, Merrill Fankhauser is my lead on the album. Calling from a Star is his track, and he has been so generous. He says he can't wait to get the green light, so when we've got everything set up, he can send it all over to his 300 DJs plus in California and get some airplay. Meanwhile, we've got Dougie decking in over this side of the pond, trying to do the same with some of his contacts. So I think this is just going to, I really hope, for all the artists that have contributed and they're trusting me with their work, thank you all for that. And I think it's going to be really exciting because nowhere, this is a world first. There has never been brought together a compilation album ever before featuring experiences of one stripe or another. So that's close-up one-on-one and or profound sightings which have impacted their life entirely.
And it's a profound topic because I, as well, did a book on experiencers and music. There is a direct connection. There's no doubt about it, whether it's because they're right-brained or whatever the thing is. You and Merrill, for people who don't know who Merrill Fankhauser was, he wrote the song Wipeout in the 1960s. That was made famous by another band, but he actually wrote it. And he told me that he actually sang the song for John Lennon. So he's a major figure. You have Steve Boucher as well on the.
Oh my God, yes, Steve Boucher. I mean, there's so many astonishing, amazing people, and Steve Boucher is another one. I mean, he and his whole band were abducted. So
1972.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's one of the most fascinating stories that people will ever hear. Is this?
Yeah, it's true.
And he tells the story how the entire audience is abducted. So fascinating.
Yes, that's right.
Fascinating thing. You hit the nail right on the head. This is an important album. The connection between music and experiencers, or experiencers, music. It's something that people have to pay attention to. Whatever it is, it's happening, because I came to the same thing. So that's why I wanted to have you on to go through this. And now, sort of to end the show, you've got a little jingle you put together, and we'll end the show with that.
Yeah, Doug and I have been putting together jingles, which will be part of our PR and marketing tool, which will be going out to the world shortly. And I will just say that the contributors are all from Canada, UK, and US. So we are hitting the 3 points.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I'm going to have you back on again when you do your book coming out this fall. I'll bring you back and we'll do it again, because you are an incredibly interesting guest. Thank you.
Well, I tell you, we'll have more on the music side by then. I hope there's going to be a volume 2.
Beautiful. I'll help you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Bill, behind the scenes. Thank you, Grant. Absolutely lovely.
Good night.
It's Eclectia, the album that everyone's talking about. And you can order your copy of this unique double compilation album featuring musicians who've had encounters or experiences with other intelligences. Call 0795 1752 813. Email info@theetnewsroom.com.
Select
Since the age of 4, the beings from Sirius have contacted me throughout my whole life. They work with color, light, and sound frequencies for healing and to activate you into higher dimensions.
actions can't speak louder than words together. No need for prayer to be like the earth.
Bring it on your special price of £10 or $13 plus shipping and post-launch £12 or $16 plus shipping.
You've been listening to the Cameron Files with Grant Cameron. Any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or program content without express written permission from the KGRA DB or Grant Cameron is strictly prohibited. The Cameron Files, in direct cooperation with the internet website presidentialufo.com.